Welcome to the session of revision of accounting standards. Now, what our objective for the next couple of hours is going to be is we are going to have a quick understanding of each AS, okay, each accounting standard in its length and depth, okay. So we are going to have its an understanding of the AS with respect to the points that are going to be significantly required for you to remember under each standard. So we will go standard by standard. After each standard is completed, we will discuss the questions that are from the past. So we will be discussing the questions from RPP of the last 4 attempts. We will also be discussing the questions from the past asked, which is your past examination papers, right? So standard by standard, we will go to discussion of questions under each scenario, right? And then I will take your doubts if there are any for each standard before I move on to the next. So this is going to be the pattern that we are going to do for accounting standards. Okay. Now what I request you is, as and when we discuss each accounting standard, we will be taking them in the form of some running notes. So each standard will be given to you in the form of, say, concise bulletin, like 5 or 6 points bulletin you will be having. So basically it will be a concise version or a very smaller version of your entire accounting standards chapter. So it will be a 1 point review for your AS chapter. So please ensure you take down these bulletin points separately in a place where you can go back and refer to it just before your exams, right? So you need not spend time with the main material also. If you just refer these points, you will be able to recollect your standard in terms of their understanding fully. So that is the level in which you are going to learn the points right now. So please ensure you are taking them down fully instead of and not taking them as shortcuts or short forms, etc. Right? So let's get started. First, AS1. Okay. Now, what is AS1? Disclosure of accounting policies. Right. So now this standard is going to be a disclosure related standard. Right. So let's start writing the points that are majorly to be remembered under this standard. So friends, accounting standard 1 is a disclosure related standard. Please take down parallelly. Point number 2. Okay. Now, what does this standard specify? If I have to go in the order of understanding, what does the standard first say? The standard says that every company has to have its own set of accounting policies. Now, every policy that is followed by an enterprise, so a company or any other enterprise, has to be disclosed in the financial statements appropriately. So that is the overall view of the standard, right? So now let us understand, let us write that point. Every enterprise shall have its accounting policies determined and disclosed in financial statements. Third point. So now the next questioning under the standard will be, what is an accounting policy? So what is an accounting policy? Refers to, okay, accounting principles and method of applying those principles and method of applying those principles. Okay. Now comes the important point. While selecting an accounting policy, every enterprise has to follow. There are three key points that every enterprise will follow at this stage. Can you say what are the 3 points? Prudence, materiality, and substance over form. Prudence, materiality, and substance over form. So, your areas of understanding here is what is an accounting policy, and while selecting accounting policy, what are the things that a enterprise has to follow. So, prudence, materiality, and substance over form. So what is prudence? Prudence is selecting an accounting policy in such a manner that we do not recognize any unnecessary or unwarranted or unrealized gains. We should provide for all anticipated losses in the method of selecting our accounting policy. Materiality. We should be able to fix policies depending on the materiality of a transaction. So if a transaction is significant, then it may require a separate accounting policy than other transactions. For example, if you are going to have assets in the category of plant and machinery and assets in the category of office furniture, each transaction is significant in nature. So your policy should be fixed in such a manner that your depreciation methods are identifiable separately for each category of assets. So that is an example of materiality. And substance over form. So substance over form says whenever you choose an accounting policy, the underlying nature of the transaction has to be considered and not its legal form or legal aspects. So your accounting system should focus on the beneficial activity of a transaction and not based on the legal aspects of a transaction, right? If we would have also learnt a question where when a particular land is sold, or when a particular building is sold, but the documentation is pending, can the sale be recorded in the books? So we wrote it as going by substance over form. Yes, it has to be recorded in the books. So the policy should provide, your accounting policy should provide that these transactions will be recorded in the books of accounts. So this is about selection or application of an accounting policy. Coming to the next question. Can an accounting policy be changed? Okay. Can an accounting policy be changed? The answer is only under specific circumstances. That is, number 1, it is provided or required under law. Okay, so if any act mandates a change of an accounting policy. Number 2, if it is required under a specific AS. If any accounting standard is changed and that standard requires a change in accounting policy. Or number 3, if it results in a better presentation of the financial position or financial statements. If it results in a better position or a better position, or gives a clearer picture of the financial statements. So only under these circumstances an accounting policy can be changed, right? So you will be asked question on can they change their accounting policy, is it right? So you have to say what is a policy. If the question is it is a policy, then you should say that they can change only under these circumstances. So like that you have to give your answer, right? Okay. And the most important part of this question, of this AS, is certain policies need not be disclosed if they are followed. That is, the application of these policies in the financial statements is assumed. What does this relate to, friends? This is nothing but fundamental accounting assumptions. Fundamental accounting assumptions. So now what are the fundamental accounting assumptions? Okay, these fundamental accounting assumptions are going concern, consistency, and accrual. Going concern, consistency, and accrual. So these are the fundamental accounting assumptions. So these are policies, accounting policies, which if you are following, you need not disclose. Only when there is a deviation from this, the same has to be disclosed in the books, right? So what is going concern? It is assumed that the business will go on till the foreseeable future. Okay, what is foreseeable future, friends? The word foreseeable future is important. Do not write go on forever, etc. Okay, use the correct terms for a better understanding of the AS. Okay, the business will continue for foreseeable future. Now what is this foreseeable future? Foreseeable future is generally taken as the next financial year. For the purpose of the standard, we generally assume it as the next financial year. Okay. Consistency. Now, what is the policy of consistency speaking about? Every accounting policy adopted has to be consistently applied within the financial period and within the organization. Okay. So, in this case, every policy shall be applied consistently within the financial year and within the organization or enterprise. Okay. So one common question that is being asked is, if an accounting policy is changed because of, say, suppose it is resulting in a better presentation, in that case, will it be a deviation of consistency? Then your answer will be no. The reason is, accounting policy can be changed if it results in better presentation of financial statements, provided the changed policy is consistently applied throughout the year. So the changed policy has to be applied throughout the year consistently. So you can change from one year to another, you cannot change within the financial year. That is the interpretation here. And accrual, all transactions are recorded as they are incurred. So basically this is the mercantile system, right? So these points summarize your entire AS1. Okay, if you are able to remember these points, the ones that we have discussed right now, then you will be able to answer any type of questions that are coming up under AS1, right? Any doubts under the standard? Now to come to questioning areas under AS1. Okay, the first type of question will be a scenario. Okay, is it a change in policy, or can the company change the policy? Is the decision taken by the company correct? Okay, so comment on the company's decision or the uh, manager's decision, like that. So this is one type of question that you will be asked. Second, okay, practical question. If it is a practical question, till now there have been very less practical questions from AS1. Okay, one of the most practical questions that has been asked is on going concern. Okay, so how to prepare a balance sheet assuming going without assuming going concern. So preparation of financials without going concern. Okay, so very small area of practical questioning from this AS. Third is a significant area. They can ask you true or false type questions. Okay, fundamental assumptions need not be disclosed, true or false. So you have to write the answer and you have to give their explanation also. So the explanation will be as per AS1, certain accounting policies need not be disclosed because their uh, following of these policies is assumed in the financial statements. They are. So you should be able to explain that point with along with your answer whether it is true or false. Right. So these are the areas of questions that are possible from AS1. Now I'm going to go to the questions that are asked in your May 2020 RTP. So I'm taking the RTP directly for your reference because in the previous RTPs, AS1 did not have many questions. Okay, so I'm directly taking a RTP of 2020. ABC Limited was making provision for non-moving inventories based on no issues for the last 12 months up to 31/3/2019. The company wants to provide during the year ending 31/3/20 based on technical evaluation. Okay. So what was the earlier provisioning method? The earlier provisioning method was based on non-moving inventories based on no issues. So if an inventory has not been issued in the past, then it has to be taken as uh, provision for inventories. Whereas now they have moved to this method of technical valuation. So now they have given you the situation where technical evaluation amount is given and no issues based calculation amount is also given. So again, this comes to a question. Does it amount to change in accounting policy? Can the company change the method of provision? Okay, think and give me the answer. The most important thing that you have to remember in this question is your answer that they can change the method from from non issues for 12 months to technical evaluation is right. They can change is right. But the most critical aspect that you have to understand is, okay, is it a change in accounting policy? You have to answer that first. The answer is it is not a change in accounting policy. It is only a change in estimate of the accounting policy. Okay, the reason I will tell you in this case, when we are making a provision, okay, what is a policy? Policy will say that a provision has to be made for non-moving stock or non-moving inventories. Now, how you calculate that provision is based on your estimate. Okay, now that estimate is something that can be changed depending on the requirement and it will not amount to change in accounting policy. Okay, so that is the point that you have to hit in this particular question. This is one of the questions where you will say that this is not a policy change itself. Right? All questions that you would have learned in the past will be based on it is a policy change. if you can change whether it if it gives better presentation, etc. But this one question is a little different. You have to understand that this is not a policy change. The policy of creating provision is remaining the same. What is changing is the way in which the amount of provision is estimated. So that estimate can be changed and it will not be treated as a change in accounting policy. However, AS1 says whatever is change is happening, you have to disclose. However, the change in the method of arriving at the estimate shall be adequately disclosed in the financial statements. So that is the answer that you have to give in this case. Am I clear, friends? So let's write down the answers. Discussion of May 2020 RT. Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes. You want the points or you want the questioning areas to be screened? The points, or you want to go to the question page? Questions, okay. So the answer is, an accounting policy refers to accounting principles and methods of applying those principles. Okay. In the given case, creation of a provision for non-moving inventory is amounting to an accounting policy. However, the method of arriving at the value of such provision shall be regarded as an accounting estimate and not treated as change in accounting policy. Therefore, the company can change the method of valuation while estimating the provision for non-moving stock. Such change shall, however, be disclosed in the financial statements with the quantitative impact. Okay, so this as per AS1 all that as per AS1 disclosure of accounting policies. You can start like that. Okay. I have just given you the crux of the answer that you have to deliver. We are moving on to the next. State whether the following statements are true or false. So true or false type questions. Certain fundamental accounting assumptions underline the preparation of and presentation of financial statements. They, they are usually specifically stated because their acceptance and use is not assumed. Directly, we know that when they speak of fundamental accounting assumptions, they need not be specifically stated. So, you will say answer is false, and you will say as per AS1, the fundamental accounting assumptions are assumed in the preparation of financial statements. Therefore, they need not be specifically stated. Okay, I am not writing the answer because a very small answer you can note down on your own. I hope you are clear with the answer. Second, if fundamental accounting assumptions are not followed, then a specific disclosure is not required. Again, the answer is false. If fundamental accounting assumptions are not followed, a specific disclosure is required as per AS1. Next, all significant accounting policies adopted in the preparation and presentation of financial statements should form part of the financial statements. True, the company shall disclose all policies adopted in the presentation and preparation of financial statements. And the last, any change in accounting policy which has a material effect shall be disclosed. Where the amount by which any item in the financial statement is affected by such change is not ascertainable, wholly or in part, the fact need not be indicated. What is the answer to this? True or false? True or false?
True.
True. The answer is false. Okay. Any change in accounting policy shall be disclosed. Okay. And their impact has to be stated only if it is material. So, materiality is not spoken for change in accounting policy. Any change in accounting policy has to be disclosed. Selection lada materiality. It is not about change. Whenever accounting policy is changed, the same shall be disclosed. If the amount is not ascertainable, then the fact that the amount is not ascertainable has to be indicated. You cannot skip the entire statement itself just because the amount is not ascertainable. You have to inform about the change in accounting policy, whether or not the amount is ascertainable. Am I clear? Now, these are your areas of true or false type questions and theoretical type questions. Okay. Regarding the questions based on going concern preparation, I believe we have done a couple of questions, a question in the classroom, which will serve as your examination learning also. So please refer to the classroom notes for that question which we did based on going concern, based on financial statements not following going concern. Only one question so far I have seen under AS1. So that one question you can go through for your examination purposes once. It is a question that was asked in the May 19 attempt, if I'm not wrong. Okay. You will also get the answer to that question along with your answers of past asked questions. So I will give those answers also, but ensure you go through the classroom notes for those questions. With this, we summarize on AS1. So when you have to prepare for AS1, don't look at anything in the, if you read this, remember these 5 points, AS1 will be done. Are you clear? We are moving on to the next standard, which is valuation of inventories. Okay. Now, this standard is going to speak about valuation of closing stock or valuation of stock in the financial statements. So, First point that you have to remember, what is inventory? Okay, so what is the terms that you have to remember for what is inventories? It refers to materials, or sorry, assets owned by an enterprise, okay, which are used as raw materials or used for production or rendering services. Okay, used as raw materials is a term that we understand. The standard will say used for the purpose of production or rendering services. And point B, which are held for sale in the ordinary course of business. Okay, and which are consumed in the process of production or rendering services. Okay, so one, which are used as raw materials for production purposes. Second, held for sale in the ordinary course of business, and consumed in the process of rendering services. So point A will cover raw materials and WIP, work in progress. Point B will cover your finished goods, and point C will cover consumables. So this is your definition of inventories under AS2. Now what does AS2 by rule says? AS2 has only one rule under its bracket. Inventories are valued at cost or net realizable value, whichever is less. Inventories are valued at cost or net realizable value, whichever is less. So when you speak of cost or net realizable value, this method has to be confirmed, or this estimate of cost and net realizable value has to be done every financial year. So every year we need to check whether the cost is less or net realizable value is less for each category of materials, be it raw material, WIP, finished goods, consumables. So for each category we need to check, and the accordingly you need to do the valuation of inventories under AS2. So the next point that you have to remember under this AS, what is cost, what is NRV? If you answer these two, then AS2 will be over, correct? So the next is cost. So what are all included in cost? Okay, what are all included in this cost? Purchase cost, then taxes which are not refundable or which do not have input credit, correct? So taxes which are not eligible for input credit. Then freight, loading, etc. Okay. Are packaging costs included? Packaging costs only if specifically incurred, which means if you are doing some specific packaging based on customer's request, okay, so in that case the packaging costs can be included. General packaging costs will not be included. Okay. Similarly, storage costs only if specific or required for the process. Meaning, if the storage cost is specifically mentioned by the customer, or if the storage cost is mandatory for the process to complete. Say for example, if you have to take raw materials like flowers or any perishable fruits, etc. Sometimes you may need to store them between first process and second process. Once these flowers are brought and opened, then you need to, suppose if you have to do you have to undye them, or you have to remove the color from them. Then after that, if suppose you have to keep them in a separate storage, so it is required as a part of the process. Okay, so those are all called as specific storage costs. So these are all included. So in a nutshell, what will be the term that you will understand here? Yes, ma? So in a nutshell, what is the term that is given under, what is the term that you will understand? All costs necessary to bring the asset to its location and intended use, or which is nothing but current condition. So all costs incurred for bringing the asset to its current location and current condition will be included. Now moving on to exclusions. Okay, what are the exclusions? Okay, specific exclusions: general packing and storage costs. Okay, then administrative expenses, right? Selling and distribution expenses, and interest or financial costs. Okay, these are all explicitly excluded from the cost of inventories or cost of calculating inventories. One more major point under this inclusion and exclusion is, okay, or rather two more major points under this inclusion and exclusions is, one thing that you have to remember first, if you are doing a calculation of finished goods, so you will take the cost of raw materials, cost of conversion, and cost of cost of raw materials and cost of conversion. Now, when you are going to take cost of conversion, you will have material and overheads. Variable costs can be taken directly. Fixed costs have to be taken based on their normal capacity or normal working capacity. Okay, so if fixed costs are apportioned, it shall be based on standard capacity or normal capacity, whichever way you can call it. And the next point that is important for you to remember is, normal loss of goods will be subtracted from the total stock for arriving at cost of inventories. Okay, cost of inventories per unit. So if you remember, we did questions where if the total goods is 1000 and normal loss is 4%, then you will do 1000 minus 4%. So you will take the total cost in the numerator divided by, we will not take 1000 in the denominator, we will take it as 1000 minus 4%, 1000 minus 40. So we will only take 960 in the denominator, correct? Whereas abnormal loss shall not be taken in the cost calculation. One second. Abnormal loss will not be taken in the cost calculation. abnormal loss will be calculated separately and charged to profit and loss account. In other words, abnormal loss will not be included in the cost of inventory, whereas normal loss will be included in the cost of inventories. Am I clear? So, all the points that we discussed before is for cost calculation. Now, the last thing under AS2 is NRV. So, net realizable value is equal to estimated selling price minus cost of completion minus cost of selling, or otherwise called as selling expenses. Okay. So, for finished goods, the formula will be net realizable value is estimated selling price minus selling expenses, because finished goods is already complete. There will not be any cost of completion, correct? So, minus selling expenses. Next, if I am going to take WIP, then NRV will be taken as estimated selling price. Remember, you will not have estimated selling price given separately for WIP. Estimated selling price will be given only for fixed goods or fixed finished goods. In other words, you will have selling price only for two, only raw materials or finished goods. In between WIP, you will not have a selling price because WIP is generally not a saleable product. So, estimated selling price of finished goods. Now, to make the WIP to finished goods, what should I do? I have to complete it. So, minus further completion costs, say further material cost or further labor cost, minus any selling expenses. And for raw materials, okay, NRV has a different method of valuation. Shall we recollect what we learned for raw materials? Now, for raw materials, we are going to go based on 2 points. One, if FG is valued at cost. In other words, when will FG be valued at cost? NRV of the FG is more than cost. Only then FG will be valued at cost. That is, NRV of finished goods is greater than cost of finished goods. Then in that case, raw material is also valued at its cost. And second scenario, opposite version of this. If FG is valued at NRV, which means the NRV of the finished goods is less than cost. Only then it will be valued at NRV, right? So, in that case, raw material is valued at its NRV, which is actually called as, is valued at replacement cost, which will be given to you in the question. It is valued at replacement cost. So, for raw material alone, we have two methods of valuation. For finished goods and WIP, the rule of valuation is different for NRV. Okay. So, these 4 points summarize AS2. Now, going to what are all the question types under this AS. Okay. This is a very practical AS. So, you will have a lot of practical questions only from this AS, majority. Okay. Or if they are asking you theoretical question, they can be like true or false, or a small theoretical question where whether this has to be included in the cost or not, like that. So first practical question area is calculation of cost, which is inclusions exclusions feature. So they will give you a list of items. You have to say whether it is included or excluded and then calculate the cost. Second, in calculation of cost itself, okay, giving you cost of conversion. Like they will give you cost of raw material is equal to, cost of labor is equal to, direct overheads, variable overheads is equal to, fixed variable overhead, fixed overheads is equal to. Now, fixed overheads has to be taken on normal capacity. So, based on this cost of conversion, they can ask you. Okay. So, variable fixed overheads based question. Third, calculation of cost la. You will have normal loss or abnormal loss treatment. Okay, so they will give you a scenario where expected normal loss is given. They will ask you to calculate the amount of normal loss and abnormal loss and give the answers. Okay, then you will have cost NRV comparison for finished goods, raw materials, WIP. So they will give you situations and ask you to do calculation of cost or NRV comparison. So they can give you a combined question. They will give you cost in list of cost items. So you have to first calculate the cost. They will give you the NRV separately. You have to calculate which one will be less, which is cost or NRV, after you do the calculation of cost. And one other question can be methods of valuation of cost. So what are the accepted methods of valuation of cost? So you can have FIFO or weighted average being questioned. Okay, let us add that to our points to remember also. So methods of valuation of cost. Okay, any method can be adopted, but suggested methods under AS2 is FIFO or weighted average. Okay. Or sometimes they can ask you this adjusted selling price method, where you do not have the cost directly available, where in that case we will be going by adjusted selling price. Only one model questions will be there in those cases, sometimes asked, but predominant area of questioning is around cost and NRV. So the major area that you have to remember is cost NRV comparison and calculation. Any doubts? Okay. Now going to questions that are asked in the last few RTP questions. Okay, I will come to past exams questions later. Right. Now this is from your RTP questions, a collection of your past RTP questions. And then we will see the latest RTP. The first question. A private limited company manufacturing fancy terry towels had valued its closing inventory of finished goods at realizable value, inclusive of profit and incentives. The firm contracts have been received and goods were packed for export, but the ownership in these goods has not been transferred to the buyers. You are required to advise on the valuation in line with provision of AS2. So this is a partly theory oriented question. So What will be the answer here, or what is the point that you have to answer here? What is the method of valuation that the company has to follow? It has to follow the valuation of cost or net realizable value, whichever is less. However, while calculating the net realizable value, okay, profit and incentives shall not be considered. Profit and incentives shall not be considered. So, we have to exclude profits and incentives while calculating the net realizable value. This is point number 1. Point number 2. Firm contracts have been received and goods were packed, but ownership has not been transferred. So, since the ownership has not been transferred, they will still be treated as inventories in the books of the company. Okay, and they will, when it is given as inventories in the books of the company, it has to be valued at cost or net realizable value only. Okay, so 2 points that you have to answer here. One, first point is, as per AS2, inventory has to be valued at cost or NRV, whichever is lower. While calculating, profits and other incentives shall not be considered for the purpose of calculation. Second point, if the ownership has not been transferred, then the same shall be treated as inventories, and the valuation shall be as per AS2 based on lower of cost or NRV. Contract price shall not be considered in the given case. Okay, these are the areas that you have to answer in this question. So I am giving the solution for the question in the manner that you have to recollect in your examination. As per AS2, inventories are to be valued at lower of cost or net realizable value. Okay. While calculation of the same, profits, incentives, etc. shall not be recognized or shall not be included. Okay. Also, if the ownership has not been transferred to the buyer, the inventories shall be retained in the books at the lower of cost or NRV. Full stop. Next point. Contract price shall not be taken for the purpose of calculation of inventory value. Okay. This is the crux of the answer. So then you can say, therefore, in the given case, the contention of the company is incorrect. So that you can complete, right? This crux, if you are presenting, is more than enough. You need not give big answers and all that. If you are writing this crux, you will be able to get most of the answers right. Moving on to some practical questions. A Limited is engaged in manufacturing of chemical Y for which raw material X is required. The company provides you the following information: rupees per unit. Raw material X, cost price 380, unloading charges 20, freight inward 40, replacement cost 300. So that is for cost or NRV comparison. Okay, so the first three alone will be included in the cost. Chemical Y, material consumed 440, direct labor 120, variable overheads 80. Now additional information given. Total fixed overheads was 4 lakh on the normal capacity of 20,000 units. So apart from these expenses, we need to include total fixed overheads based on normal capacity, and closing balance of each of the raw material and finished goods is given. You are required to calculate the total value of closing stock as per AS2 when NRV is 1,800 rupees per unit, second NRV is rupees 600 per unit. Please start calculating. We will check the answers once your calculation is complete. Answers. First, we will calculate the raw material cost. Raw material cost is going to be 380 plus 20 plus 40, 440. Correct? Raw material cost is 440. Okay. Next, finished goods cost per unit will be 440, which is raw material cost, plus 120 labor plus 80 variable overheads plus fixed overheads will be taken as 4 lakhs divided by 20,000 units. So you will get 4 lakh divided by 20,000, which is 20 rupees. So plus 20, giving you 660 rupees. 660 rupees. Now, scenario 1, when NRV of finished goods is 800. Okay. So NRV is greater, so finished goods will be valued at cost. And if finished goods is valued at cost, raw material will also be valued at cost. So you have to write that explanation. Since NRV of finished goods is greater, finished goods will be valued at cost. If finished goods is valued at cost, raw material will be valued at cost. And the explanation has to be present in your answer. Okay. Now coming to the answer, you will have 660 finished goods into number of units is finished goods is 2,400 units, right? 2,400. $15,84,000. And the next one will be 440 for raw materials into 1,000 units, which will be 44, 1, 1, 2, 3. 4,40,000. So giving you a total of
20,24,000.
20,24,000. When NRV is of finished goods is 600. So in this case, NRV is less than finished goods cost. So finished goods will be valued at NRV. So your value will be 600 into 240, 2,400 units, which will be 14,40,000. And the next one, if finished goods are valued at NRV, raw materials will be valued at replacement cost. What is the replacement cost given in the question? 300 is the replacement cost.
Correct.
Correct. So 300 into 1000, which will be 3 lakhs. So giving you a total of 17 lakh 40,000. So this should be your answers under each scenario. Now this question number 3 is another question again related to NRV calculation. Okay. On 31st March, a business firm finds that cost of a partly finished unit on that date is rupees 530. The unit can be finished in 2017-18 by an additional expenditure of 310 rupees. Finished unit can be sold for 750 rupees subject to a brokerage of 4%. So, cost estimated selling price is 750. Brokerage is called as selling expenses. And this 310 rupees will be called as additional cost of completion. Okay. The firm seeks your advice regarding the amount for which the unfinished unit, meaning the WIP, should be valued as on 31st March for preparation of final accounts. Assume that the units cannot be sold in semi-finished form and NRV is 0 without processing further, which means WIP does not have an NRV. We only have an NRV for finished goods. So you are required to calculate the NRV for finished goods. Start.
What is the answer for
So let's go to the calculation of
what is the answer for
this question. The answer has to be, let's write the working. So NRV of WIP will be equal to estimated selling price, which is, so estimated selling price is 750 minus cost of completion. Okay, cost of completion, I need to take the further completion cost and not what was completed as on the date. 530 is over. So historical cost I am not going to take. I am only going to take the future additional expenditure. So 750 minus 310 minus 4% brokerage. So 750 minus 310 minus 4% on selling price, which is 4% on 750. Giving you the final answer as 410
Yes,
rupees.
ma'am.
Are you
Okay,
getting
ma'am.
this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Per unit. 410 rupees per unit should be your final answer. We are going to go to your current RTP question, May 2020 RTP question, which is opening inventory, finished goods quantity is given, raw materials quantity is given. Purchases 10,000 kgs. Okay, I'm scrolling down. Labor 76,500 rupees. Overheads, fixed overheads 75,000 rupees. Sales 10,000 kgs for 2,80,000. They have now given you the closing raw materials and closing finished goods. The expected production for the year was 15,000 kg of the finished product. So expected production is your normal production capacity. Due to the fall in market demand, sales prices was rupees 20 per kg and replacement cost was rupees 9.5 per kg on the closing day. Calculate the cost of closing inventory. Similar question relating to cost computation. Okay, what are all the points that you have to remember? First, compute raw material cost. Then compute your cost per unit. Then compute finished goods cost per unit. Then what we are going to do? Finalize the cost or NRV, whichever is lower, and then take your computation. Now this point that they have given, expected production overheads, is nothing but your production capacity or normal production capacity. Where will it be relevant? For calculating your fixed overheads per unit. Okay, so that is where it is going to be relevant. Similarly, for labor also, because for labor they have not given the actual units. So for labor also you can take the overheads on the basis of 15,000 kg. So in this case, if you see for labor and overheads, they have not given us the per unit rates. They have only given us the total rates. So we can go by the total rates divided by expected production. Right? Start. Friends, the most important catch point in this question, okay, is first thing, if nothing is mentioned for both labor and fixed overheads, we can take the expected production of 15,000 kgs. Okay, if nothing is mentioned, labor and overheads can be at expected production. But the most important point, okay, which everyone will miss. Okay, just because I said we can take 15,000 kgs, no, you have to look into the details of the question. In this question, they have also given you scope for calculating actual production of finished goods. So how do we compute the actual production of finished goods? Okay, so actual production, let's just calculate that units first. Okay, actual production can be given as sales plus closing stock minus opening stock. How did we arrive at this formula? We know this formula called as cost of goods sold, or goods sold is equal to costing aspect marandrunga. Goods sold is equal to opening stock plus purchases. Purchases can be replaced with production. Okay, if you are trading, then you purchase. If you are producing, then it is manufacturing or production, right? So opening stock plus production minus closing stock. And the formula அப்படியே நான் திருப்பி போட்டிருக்கேன். So if you are going to take this actual production into consideration, so sales plus closing stock minus opening stock. Okay, so sales is 10,000 plus closing stock is 1,200 minus opening stock 1,000, giving you 10,200 as your actual production units. The most important point to be remembered here is labor, because it is not mentioned anything about labor. Okay, so we are going to take labor is on actual production units. Fixed overheads will be on normal production units. Okay, so for labor, when you divide your total labor cost, you should divide it by 10,200 units and not by 15,000. Okay, this is the only catch in the question. If you are able to figure this out, then the rest of the answer becomes easy. Can you tell me the final answer? Anjani? Raw material cost per unit is equal to. Okay, let me go to the answer. Raw material cost per unit is going to be taken as.
மேம் எங்க கால் பிரேக் ஆகுது மேம். இவ்வளவு நேரமா நான் லைன்ல இல்ல மேம். சாரி கால் பிரேக் ஆகுது மேம். இவ்வளவு நேரமா நான் லைன்ல இல்ல மேம்.
Okay, okay, okay. No problem, no problem, no problem. What is the value of cost per unit that you have to take? Calculate and tell me. For raw materials, it is going to be cost, purchase cost, 1 lakh divided by 10,000. So which will give you 10 rupees plus for labor, sorry, raw material cost is 10 rupees. Correct? Now cost of finished goods per unit. This is where we are going to have raw material, labor, overheads, etc. So 10 rupees of raw material plus labor will be equal to 76,500 divided by 10,200, which is 7.5, plus fixed overheads will be equal to 75,000 divided by 15,000 rupees 5. So giving you a value of 10 plus 7.5 plus 5, 22.50, 22.5 rupees per unit. Now once you have calculated this, we can come to the final solution. Okay, what is the final solution here? They have mentioned that the NRV or selling price of finished goods is 20 rupees and replacement cost is 9.5 rupees. So NRV is less than the cost. Okay, so NRV of finished goods is rupees 20, which is less than the cost. Okay, so what will be the valuation of finished goods? Value of finished goods will be equal to 20 rupees NRV into closing stock 1200 units, which will be 24,000 rupees. And similarly, raw material replacement cost is 9.5 rupees. Okay. If replacement cost is 9.5, now we know the rule for valuation here. If finished goods is valued at NRV, then raw material should also be valued at replacement cost only. So here replacement cost is taken as the basis. What is the closing stock? Value of raw materials will be, closing stock of raw materials is 900 units. So 900 into 9.5, which is 8,550. So your total inventory cost will be 24,000 plus 8,550. I hope you understand the solution. Now, friends, with respect to AS3, okay, this is also an AS related area only. Please do not ignore thinking this will not come in compulsory question. This can also come in question number 1. Now, what are all the points if under this AS perspective that you have to remember? Number 1, okay, you should be able to identify the distinction of each item between the 3 types of activities. So, there are 3 types of activities. What are they? Operations or operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. Correct? And then you have cash and cash equivalents separately. So, any item in cash flow statement will be classified either as operating activity or investing activity or financing activity, or it can be taken in the category of cash and cash equivalents. Okay, so only these will be the categorizations under AS3. Now, when it comes to method of operating activities preparation, so for operating activities, method of calculating cash flow statement can be under 2 methods. Which is direct or indirect method. So under direct method, you will start with collections from customers, payment to creditors, etc. So you will start from that point where you speak about collections, payments, any cash sales made, cash purchases. So all that will be under the direct method. Indirect method is going from your balance sheet and P&L, which is you start with your net profits and go by the reverse working, right? So that is indirect method. Okay. Now regarding this AS, I am not getting into deeper workings in terms of calculations, etc. We have a separate chapter that you have learned in cash flow statements chapter, right? So in the 5-mark area, AS related area, what can be the question? Okay. The question types can be, most commonly repeated question type is identify the type of activity. So they will give you a list of 5 or 6 items and ask you to identify which is falling under which activity, operating, investing, financing, or if it is not all the 3, then it will be whether it is cash and cash equivalents. So you have to give that bifurcation. Okay. Or the second type is prepare cash flow from activities. So they will not ask you full cash flow statement. They will ask you prepare cash flow from operating activities direct method. Only that information will be given. Prepare cash flow from investing activities. Only investment information will be given. Or prepare cash flow from financing activities. Like that, small questions can be asked in the under 5 marks. So these are the predominant 2 questioning types. Okay. Now let's quickly get into the question that is asked under your May 2020 with respect to the classification. I know preparation of cash flows you would have extensively dealt with in your cash flow statements chapter. So I'm not getting into those questions. I'm only going to a quick recap on these items. So let's have a quick recap. Proceedings from long-term borrowings. They are financing activities. Okay. Next, trade receivables proceeds. Operating activities. Trading commission received. Operating activities. Redemption of preference shares. Financing activities. Proceeds from sale of investment. Investing activities. Dividend paid on equity shares. Interim dividend paid on equity shares. Financing activities. Interest received on debentures held as investment. So the question itself says here it is investing activities. Dividend received on shares held as investments. Again, it is held as investments, therefore it will be treated under investing activities. Rent received on property held as investment. Okay, property held as investment. It is not rent received in the ordinary course of business. It is property held as investment. Therefore, this will also be treated as a part of investment activity only. Dividend paid on preference shares, financing activities. Marketable securities, cash and cash equivalents. So it will be added under the last category, opening cash and closing cash. Their marketable securities will be taken. Any doubts in any of these classifications? Right. So with this AS3 also we summarize. Now we are going to move on to another AS10.
Ma'am, how does interim dividend come in
Yes,
financing
ma'am.
activity, ma'am? How does interim dividend come in financing activity, ma'am?
Interim dividend is paid on your equity shares only, no? Equity shares is financing activity. So dividend on equity shares will also be financing activity only.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So we are moving on to the next is property, plant and equipment. Okay. Now this accounting standard is exclusively a standard which is going to speak on property, plant and equipment, or in other words fixed assets, right? So this standard deals with property, plant and equipment, which is nothing but tangible fixed assets. Second point. Okay. What is a fixed asset or what is a property, plant and equipment? So definition of the term property, plant and equipment. An asset held by the enterprise okay, which is expected to generate future economic benefits, which is expected to generate future economic benefits. So a property, plant and equipment under AS10 is an asset which is expected to generate future economic benefits. Point number 3. Okay. When future economic benefits are certain and cost of the asset can be measured, the same has to be recognized in the books. Okay, so point number 1, future economic benefits has to be certain, and point number 2, cost of the asset should be measurable. So now this gives us to the next question, what is the cost of the asset? Cost of the asset includes purchase cost, okay, taxes non-refundable, same story, okay, taxes not non-refundable. Any, most important point friends, directly attributable costs. Any directly attributable costs. So standard says any cost that is directly attributable to bringing the asset to its current location and condition. Any directly attributable cost to bring the asset to its current location for its intended use. For its intended use. Okay. What are the exclusions? So excludes, okay, any costs that are incidental in nature. Incidental in nature. Okay. So examples can be cost of setup or cost of say for example cost of inauguration, then operating losses. So these are all costs that are incidental in nature. Okay. The most important point under this cost is, okay, it includes, so cost includes initial estimate of dismantling okay at the time of removal. Cost includes initial estimate of dismantling at the time of removal. So when you are going to speak of inclusions, you will not only take purchase cost and directly attributable cost, you should also consider initial estimate of dismantling and removing. Okay, it will also be taken even though it is a futuristic expense or futuristic cost, it has to be considered and taken in the cost of the asset. One of the most important points under PPE. Okay, generally this point is tended to be forgotten while calculating the cost. So please remember this point. Okay, otherwise we have certain other open exclusions like incidental costs, then initial operating losses. Okay, then cost of transportation after the asset is put to use. Okay, etc. Now that's a good question. Does initial operating losses include test run? Please understand, test run cost is required for making the asset ready for its intended use. So test run cost is a directly attributable cost, so it will be included. Initial operating losses is after the machine is ready for use or after the property, plant and equipment is ready for use. Okay. Examples of any other incidental costs could be items relating to say for example temporary storage huts that were constructed, any temporary facilities that were constructed for the purpose of enabling the major construction. So all that can be taken as incidental in nature. Right? So please note down these items as a part of cost. The next point that you have to remember in terms of AS10 is, okay, now this cost is recognized for a PPE or property, plant and equipment. The next comes valuation or measurement after initial recognition, which means how the asset has to be carried in the books. So there are two ways in which it will be carried. One, okay, method one is going to be asset will be carried at cost less depreciation. Okay, asset will be carried at cost less depreciation. Under the AS10 language, it is called as cost method. Okay, it is called as cost method. So depreciation will be accumulated depreciation. So I am using the word accumulated depreciation. Okay. Next method will be or asset will be carried at revalued amount. At revalued amount. Okay. After revaluation, depreciation may or may not be charged, but initially asset will, when you are revaluation, when you are doing revaluation for the asset, you will be carrying the asset as at the revalued amount. So generally this will be applicable for assets like loose tools, etc. So this is called as revaluation method. Okay. Now whichever method the entity wants to apply, it can choose to apply. So for example, if it says for furniture and fixture, I want to apply cost, whereas for loose tools, I want to apply revaluation. So if it applies for one asset in a group, if it is going to apply cost method, then for all the assets in the same group, it has to apply the same method. So in one group, only one method can be followed. So one group meaning assets of similar nature. Okay. So please remember, method should be consistent within the same group of assets. Okay. So what is the same group? Same group is nothing but assets of similar category. So are generally grouped together. Now the most important point again, methods of depreciation. Okay. The AS does not specify this method alone has to be followed. This method is suggested. No, nothing. AS does not specify anything. But generally followed methods are straight line method or written down value method or percentage proportion based calculation method, etc. So AS does not really specify on which method has to be followed, but preferable methods of depreciation are these. Now, in method of depreciation, the most important aspect that we have to remember, okay, is depreciation can be charged based on useful life estimated for entire group or for components, for each components. Okay, so for entire group is group method or collective depreciation, correct? So group depreciate or grouped assets method, which is basically your a block of assets which is going to be taken. Whereas for each components, this method is called as componentization method. So what is this difference? In grouped method, only one useful life will be taken for the entire category of the assets. Whereas in each components method or componentization method, each category of the asset, depending on its nature, will be classified into different components. Say for example, in a building, the building interiors will have a separate useful life. Wiring will have a separate useful life, or furniture and fitting will be having a separate useful life. So that method where you have separate useful lives for separate components is called as componentization method of depreciation. Okay. Moving on to the last point is about revaluation. Okay. This is when you have a revaluation in the initial estimated cost, or when there is a revaluation in the assets. So under this, okay, let us understand the rule. If the if the method is cost method, if the method followed is cost method, which means you are following not revaluation method, you are following cost method. In that case, any increase or decrease will be taken to cost of the asset. Will be taken to cost of the asset. Next method, in case of revaluation method, okay, increase will be taken to revaluation reserve and decrease will be taken to P&L account. So when this is going to apply, revaluation of the cost in case of any change in estimates. Any change in estimates. So if your initial cost is going to be changing because of any changes in the initial estimates, then if it is cost method, if you are doing usual depreciation, cost and depreciation method, then whatever is the change, add or subtract it in the cost of the asset. If you are doing under revaluation method, if there is an increase, take it to revaluation reserve. If there is a decrease, take it to profit and loss account. And to the last note, okay, a point to remember or a note you can take. Any change in actual cost, I am not saying change in estimate, I am saying any change in actual cost or useful life or method of depreciation, anything, whatever is the change, it will be affected prospectively. It will be affected prospectively, which means you should take the value as on the date of change and the impact will be given for futuristic purposes. You will not go and give retrospective impact. Okay. The most important distinction is this is about change in actual cost, whereas the previous point is revaluation of cost, okay, or revaluation in case of any change in estimates. Okay, change in estimates is on the initial estimate of handling cost, initial estimate of delivery cost. We learnt it right here. Initial dismantling, handling and delivery. So this is basically dismantling is handling and delivery inclusive. So in the estimate, if it is going to change, then only 0.7 will apply. For any other actual changes in the cost, if you are going to make new additions to the machinery by spending something extra, or if you are going to make extensions to the building by spending something extra, or if there is a change in useful life, or if there is a change in method of depreciation, everything is going to be prospectively. So with this, AS10 as concepts is summarized. Any doubts? Right? Now coming to questioning areas. Okay. First, cost calculation, which means they will give you a list of items. You should say whether it is included in cost or excluded in cost and accordingly find the cost of machinery. Second, depreciation under componentization method or grouped method, which means they will give you a list of items or individual useful lives will be given. You have to calculate depreciation. If it is componentization method, which is the most frequently asked method also, in that case you will say individual group total amount divided by useful life of that group. Whereas if it is the grouped method, you should take the major asset or a useful life. Okay, if it is building, then major portion of that building, whatever is the useful life, you should take only that for the entire cost of the building and not go by componentizations, right? So this will be one question that is asked. And another method, another type of question that is asked can be revised value of depreciation, where there is a change in method or change in useful life. Okay, so predominant areas of questioning are these. Okay, now let's go to some questions from your RTP. So eduthodni we have question number 10. So in the year 1670, an entity has acquired freehold building with a useful life of 50 years at rupees 90 lakhs. Entity desires to calculate depreciation charge per annum using straight line method. It has identified the following components. Okay, so you have land, which is infinite, roof, lifts, fixtures and remainder portion of the building. Calculate depreciation as per componentization method. So in this case, how we are going to calculate depreciation? For each component, respective useful lives will be taken. For land, no depreciation because it is infinite. Roof 25 years, lifts 20 years, fixtures 10 years, remainder portion 50 years. Please calculate the depreciation and give me the answer. So your total depreciation in this case will be 2,15,000. Okay, I'm not going to the workings because very simple. It will be 0 for land, 10 lakh divided by 25 for roof, 5 lakh divided by 20 for lifts, 5 lakh divided by 10 for fixtures, and 50 lakhs divided by 50 for the remainder of the building. You should get a total depreciation of 2,15,000, 215,000. Okay. Now, a point for you to remember. If in the same question, if they are asking you not as per componentization method, but as per grouped assets method, which means land will be separated. Always remember, if you can identify the cost of land, you have to separate land, because land always has infinite useful life. Now, for the remaining portion, which is 90 lakhs is the total. If you ignore land, you are going to get the remaining portion as 70 lakhs. Now, if you are going to go by grouped method of depreciation, and if the question says the same numbers are given, okay, so in that case, for that 70 lakhs, for the entire 70 lakhs, you should take the whole building's useful life, which is 50 years. Okay, for grouped method, you should take the depreciation based on that category of the asset which occupies the significant portion or the major portion. So here building is the significant portion, so you will take 50 years. So in that case, what will be the answer? Land infinite, so 0 depreciation. For remainder, for the entire group of building, then it will be 70 lakhs divided by 50 years. That will be the cost of depreciation for that in that case. Okay, now here it is componentization, so we have directly calculated. If at all the other method is asked, please remember this is the way you need to calculate. Am I clear, friends? Moving on to question number 11. Yes, ma'am. Yes? Okay, in case componentization method is not asked and grouped asset method is asked, then the land amount is ignored. What is the remainder portion? The remainder portion is 90 lakhs minus 20 lakhs, which is 70 lakhs. And the useful life will be for the major portion of the building, which is 50 years. So 70 lakhs divided by 50 years. That will be your depreciation. Okay. Moving on to question number 11. ABC is installing a new plant at its production facility. It provides you the following information. So you are going to calculate the cost of the plant. Please start calculation and we will check your final answer. Answer to this question. Cost of the plant included. Initial dismantling costs, it has to be included. Even if it is going to be incurred after 5 years, it has to be included. Initial operating losses excluded. Initial delivery and handling costs, so it is directly attributable cost, included. Cost of site preparation, attributable directly, included. Consultant's advice, directly attributable, included. Included, directly attributable costs. That is after the asset is being put to use. Here they have not mentioned that, no, so it is before the asset is put to use. If the cost of transportation or handling and delivery is after the installation of the asset or after the asset is ready for use, then it will not be included. But in this case, initial delivery and handling cost is at the time of installation, so it will be included. So what is the total cost? It will be 31,25,000 plus 2,50,000 plus 1,85,000 plus 4,50,000 plus 6,50,000. 46 lakhs? 46 lakhs 60,000. 4660. 46 lakhs 60,000 should be your final answer. Okay. The next year RTP also had same pattern of questioning. Okay. Right. So the same pattern of questioning, you can try it. I will send you the question. You can try it on your own and check the answers for this question. I will be giving you the question as a part of your handout. So because it is the same pattern, let's not spend time on discussing it right now. Now coming to the question asked in your May 2020 RTP. First one, entity A has a policy of not providing depreciation on PPE capitalized until the following year, but it provides for a full year depreciation in the year of disposal of the asset. Is it acceptable? So, in the year of capitalization, I am not providing depreciation. From the next year only, I am starting to provide depreciation. Similarly, I am providing depreciation in till the full year of use. Is it correct as per AS 10? What is the base principle? Depreciation has to be provided to reflect a pattern of the usage of the asset. To reflect a pattern of the usage of the asset. Since the asset is put to use on the year of capitalization itself, or asset is ready for use in the year of capitalization itself, depreciation has to be provided from the period of capitalization. Okay, and the asset is disposed on a particular period, then in that case only depreciation will be calculated only till the period of disposal. So what is the word that you have to write here? Okay, depreciation has to be provided in such a manner so as to reflect the pattern of usage of the asset. Okay, in the given case, the asset will be ready for use from the period of capitalization till the period of disposal. Therefore, the method followed by the entity is not acceptable. Can we write the answer, friends? Okay, I am giving the answer in the notes itself. As per AS 10, depreciation shall be provided in such a manner so as to reflect the pattern of usage of the asset. Okay, the asset becomes ready for use from the date of capitalization and is retained for its intended use till the date of disposal. Therefore, depreciation shall be provided from the date of capitalization till the date of disposal. And the company's policy is, or the entity's policy, they have given entity only, no? Is incorrect. So this will give you the answer. This is the crux of the answer for that question. Question B under AS10. Entity A purchased an asset as on 1st January 2016 for 1 lakh. The asset had an estimated useful life of 10 years, residual value nil. 1st January 2020, the directors review the estimated useful life and it is and decided that the asset will be probably useful for further 4 years. So they have revised the useful life for further 4 years. Okay. Calculate the amount of depreciation for each year if the company charges depreciation on straight line basis. So you have to calculate from 2016 till the end of the depreciable period. Start. Now in this case, depreciation, okay, from 16 to 20, initially estimated useful life is 10 years. So depreciation from 16 to 20 will be for 1 lakh. So let me give the working indications. From 2016 to 2020 or 2019. Okay. So which will be for how many years? 16, 17, 18, 19. 4 years. Depreciation will be 1 lakh divided by 10. So which you will get it as 10,000 rupees. Now in the year 2020, they have revised the useful life to another 4 years, which means it is going to be there for 20, 21, 22, 23. So 20 to 2023 for the next 4 years. Depreciation will be, okay. The cost of the asset is 1 lakh. Okay. Now per year depreciation has been 10,000 till the previous year. Correct. So the value has been reduced by 1 lakh minus 4 years are over. So 40,000 reduced. So you will have the remaining cost of the remaining cost of the asset or the depreciable value that is left in the books is 60,000 rupees. 60,000 divided by further useful life of 4 years, which is going to be 15,000 per year. Very simple question, cakewalk question for us to answer if given. Right? Moving on to the last question under AS10. Following items are given to you. Okay, cost of testing. So you have cost of testing, cost of conducting business, training costs. So there are a list of costs. With reference, classify as purchase cost, directly attributable cost, cost not included. So they are only asking you to classify. Okay, let's check. Cost of testing, whether the asset is functioning properly. So what is this called as? Cost of test run or trial run. Am I correct? Okay. So this is going to be treated as directly attributable costs. This is treated as directly attributable costs. Next, cost of conducting business in a new location with a new class of customer. Now, conducting a new business is not related to the fixed asset. So, it is cost not included in determining the amount of PPE. Number 3, any cost directly attributable. So, they have given the statement directly. It is called as directly attributable cost of PPE. Okay, so it is called as directly attributable costs of PPE. Next, cost of opening a new facility like inauguration costs. Now, inauguration cost, is it directly attributable or is it incidental? It is incidental, okay? It is not directly related to bringing the asset. So, it is taken as cost not included in determining the amount of PPE. So, inauguration cost is cost not included in determining the amount of PPE. And the last point, purchase price including import duties and non-refundable purchase taxes after deducting trade discount and rebates. So, given it is treated as purchase price of PPE, which is the purchase cost. Okay, so you have now classified the items depending on the conditions that they have given. Right? So, the only thing that you have to remember is the distinction between directly attributable and incidental expenses. Right? The examples are clearly given in the detailed handout that we learned while doing AS. So, refer to that detailed handout. Okay. So, with this we summarize on AS 10. Okay. So far we have completed AS 1, AS 2, AS 3 we have also seen a quick recap, and we have done AS 10. So, we have seen your last 4 attempts RTP questions from this AS. So, including your May 20 RTP, we have seen the last 4 attempts RTP questions. Okay. So, from the accounting standards. Now, we will pause here for today's session. The next session, we are going to resume with the further AS, which is we will be doing AS 11, AS 12, a quick recap on AS 13 and AS 16. Okay, once we do that, we will see holistically, we will see all our past exam question papers with respect to AS questions. Okay, so today's session is getting over with this point. Have a nice day. All the best. See you all in the next session.